Exploring World History by Ray Notgrass with Charlene Notgrass and John Notgrass, Lesson 1. It begins with God. The story of our world must begin with God, its maker. God is eternal. He has always existed and will always exist. God is spirit, so he's not limited by space and time. In his love and in his creative power, God made the finite, material universe in which we live. Within this physical universe, God created humans on the planet Earth. The story of mankind, which covers the span of a few thousand years within the context of eternity, is what we call world history, our spiritual quest. The most important part of human history and mankind's relationship with God. Humanity began when God created man in his own image. Man had fellowship with God in the Garden of Eden. Soon, however, man rebelled in sin and was separated from God, and the great quest for reconciliation began. As mankind scattered over the face of the earth, some people continued to worship God, while others believed in various substitutions for God. Then God reached out to mankind in love by sending Jesus Christ to be our Redeemer and Reconciler. The Bible is the story of God's work to bring people back into a relationship with Him. God is our Creator and Sustainer. However, most of the people who have lived in the past and most of the people who are alive today have not known the one true God, nor had a relationship with Him. Mankind has, by and large, resisted knowing and submitting to God. Many cultures have developed alternative religious systems. Some people, a relatively small number of those who have ever existed, have refused to believe in any supernatural being at all. Jesus Christ, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Savior of the world, and the one by whom the world was created, is not known or believed in by most people in the world today. So the spiritual quest continues. Why the spiritual quest is central. The quest to know God is mankind's most important task because God defines who we are as human beings. Since we are created by God in His image, we have a responsibility to fulfill His purpose for us. More important than the story of wars, conquerors, politics, and technology, then, is the fact that Jesus Christ came and died for you and me. People have a fundamental need to live in a right relationship with God through Jesus Christ. This is the one way that a person can live his or her life on the basis of what is true. This right relationship with God will enable a person to live in God's will now and live with God forever. Without a grasp of this fundamental need to know God, the study of world history, though wonderful and fascinating, is ultimately a meaningless and pointless exercise. To be sure, the story of mankind, even apart from this spiritual quest, deserves our best intellectual abilities and engages all of our emotions. We learn of heroes who saved lives, sometimes at the cost of their own, and of villains who caused the death of millions. We read of inventors and thinkers who have changed the way human life is lived. We are amazed that out of the billions of people who have ever lived, some individuals are remembered even thousands of years after they've walked the earth. We are overwhelmed to think about the billions of people who have lived here. The story of human history helps us to understand how today's world got to be the way it is. We can be inspired to try to make a difference for good in our lives, and perhaps we can learn enough about yesterday's mistakes to keep from making them again tomorrow. However, 50 years from now, it'll make little difference whether you knew anything about Mesopotamia or the Holy Roman Empire or Communist Russia. If you do not have the right relationship with God and seek to honor Him with your life, it will make all the difference both here and for eternity. If you do know the Lord, live for Him, and learn how to serve Him better by knowing human history and pass the knowledge on to the next generation. This puts the study of world history into perspective. World history and your purpose. We have many good spiritual reasons for studying world history. First, human history sheds light on our identity and purpose. The building of the pyramids in Egypt, the conquest of Genghis Khan, tribal wars in Africa, the accomplishments of the scientific revolution, the spread of the British Empire, and recent advances in computer technology all contribute, in some way, to defining who we are and where we are going. The development of different cultures, the exploration of this world and of outer space, the lives of people who live in the past all have an impact on how and where you live, what you believe, and why you believe it. Second, we can learn lessons from world history. Ancient China, medieval Africa, the 19th century Australia might not appear at first glance to have much to do with us today, and admittedly, not all the strands of world history affect us equally. However, humans have always had to deal with issues of spiritual identity and purpose, power and control in society and politics, relationships in communities and families, and how best to use our lives. None of the basic issues human beings face today, war, poverty, the environment, marriage and family, and so forth, are new. Today's problems, such as how much the world can be blown up at one time, how many innocent people a terrorist can kill at once, how much information we can know about the world, and how fast we can know it, are only current manifestations of age old questions. Third, world history helps us understand the world in which we live and in which we seek to honor God. The story of mankind is made up of strands that are interwoven throughout the tapestry of history. Today's Islamic terrorism and the situation in the former communist countries of Europe, for instance, are directly influenced by events of the mid 20th century. Events of the mid 20th century were influenced by what happened earlier in the century. What happened in the earlier 20th century was the result of events in the 19th century. What happened in the 19th century was influenced by events of the 18th century, and so forth. What took place a long time ago in one century can have an impact on events in another country today. For example, the Protestant Catholic conflict over 300 years ago in England has an influence on what happened in Northern Ireland today. You will probably not hear a historical analysis of current events on the evening news, but you will not fully understand the world in which you live unless you learn these strands of history and how they're related to each other. Conclusion. World history begins with God. It will ultimately end with God when we appear before his judgment seat. Between those 2 points, each of us lives his or her life on the same planet where every other human being has lived. We are connected to other people because we share the same human condition and because we have been given life for the same purpose, to honor God. By knowing something about the story of human life on this planet, we can live our lives in a way that will make a difference now and into eternity. This is why we study world history. The earth is the Lord's and all that it contains, the world and those who dwell in it. Psalm 24:1.